Hey, Joe Chevalier here with Valhalla and Valkyrie Racing Team. Last night we had a great event with Jorge Martinez, and I was able to capture all that just for you. So with that, enjoy.
Show. Thanks for coming out on a kind of miserable day today. So as promised, we're going to start doing a few of these types of events, team-oriented for kind of a learning experience. And the first one, we chose to go with Jorge here today. Also, during Jorge's presentation, Robbie and Clayton will give you kind of mini treatments if you would like one as well. So just let them know you're got a sore spot that needs fixing and or sore spots. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I forgot who we're talking about here. And they can work their magic for you as well. We'll have some Q&A at the end, but Jorge's going to talk about, because we're always posting, we're seeing these posts about all this performance stuff with lactate threshold testing and, all these different types of tests. And everyone knows about what the tests are, but no one knows what the hell they do. And once you get tested, then what, right? So that's what we're going to kind of focus on is what are the advantages of doing so? And once you do get tested, how do you use the information you got from it? Fair enough? All right, I will give this over to Jorge, and he can start his discussion.
Thank you.
And there's plenty of food. And eat the cookies, damn it.
You gotta take them all home.
No.
All right, well, again, welcome. I think everybody knows me here, but just quick, my name is Jorge Martinez. I'm the head coach at E3 Tri Coaching, but most importantly here at the FreeSpeedLab in collaboration with Mobility Chirotherapy. I've been collaborating with them for the past, I think, almost going to 5 years now, something around there. And with the FreeSpeedLab, I focus on elements that are important for endurance training, but might not necessarily be directed just for coaching. I wanted to open something that might be able to help people, whether I work with them or not, because I've seen how this can really help and impact your performance in a positive way. It can be as simple as something as simple that sometimes people don't think about it, as having a good bike fit for a position that you can sustain for the distance that you're racing can make a big difference for you on your performance on training and then on racing. So what we're going to be talking about today is just a little bit about this. Oh, there it is. How you can optimize your performance from a holistic perspective. Basically, a lot of times when we're doing training, we're just focusing on what's in front of us. We have a plan, we might have a run, we have a bike, whatever, and that's the only thing that we're focusing, when there's elements around it that it could allow you to help you and improve long term. So if you're only focusing on your workouts, yeah, you're focusing on the important element of that, but if you're not paying attention to how you're doing in your workouts or how you're recovering from your workouts, or if you're training at the right intensity for the goals that you have, you might be doing the work, but might not be the work that is better for you. Thinking about all the various elements that potentially can help you with your training, it's important. So first we have the element of staying healthy when you're doing your training, right? A lot of the times we do a lot of this training, and once something starts bugging us, might be like a little sore knee or a little bit sore ankle or whatever it is, most of us, I'll just keep it easy today, it's going to go away. And then we keep on that regard for maybe a week or two, and then it's not going away, start getting a little bit worse. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, now I actually need to do something. And a lot of the times we wait till the time that is already late to try to pay attention to that particular problem. And now you need to start taking time off your training. You might not need to be able to keep with your routine because now you already exceed the threshold of being injured or not. So in terms of mobility chiro, here there's kind of like a bit of an umbrella of different things that you could use as techniques or treatments in order to allow you to get back to hopefully normal in a shorter period of time. These are treatments that it will allow you hopefully continue to train, maybe at a reduced rate or load, but you're not necessarily just sitting waiting to see when you're going to get better. So they have different elements here: ART, active release technique, soft tissue mobilization, dry needling, chiropractic care, physical rehab. So all these different elements are just different ways that these two guys can help you tackle the particular problem that you might have. Now, this is important. Obviously, if you have a problem, try to address it right away, because if you let it linger, it can become even worse in the future. Instead of missing a couple of weeks or a month of training, now I might be looking at months, because now you require something more specific. So the other element is a preventing approach. So a lot of people just think about coming here when you're injured, when in reality, you could take advantage of the help of these guys by doing some sort of maintenance to your body, even when you're not injured, or when you have maybe, we call it a little tweak or niggle, that you have a little bit of soreness here or there, but it's not necessarily holding you back from training. But if you don't try to address it, eventually it can become something like an injury. So instead of just waiting when you're injured to thinking about coming here, you could actually be proactive and prevent something in developing by saying, like, oh, I have a little bit of soreness here, I'm going to go see these guys, get a little bit of treatment. And most importantly, these guys can help you to start also getting ahead of it, becoming an injury, not just with treatment, but with recommendations of exercises that you can include in your training, some strengthening, stretching, mobility exercises, that for the majority of people, that's the key to keep you healthy. The strengthening, the mobility, and all of that. So think about the services offered here, not only when you're injured, but as a way to prevent you getting injured. Okay? So maintenance is going to go a long way. In terms of what I'm doing at the FreeSpeedLab, this approach, what it tries to tackle is all these different elements from a scientifically based approach, in which we're trying to use tools or use approaches that we're just trying to pinpoint a little bit what elements might be able to help you just to get a little bit better in your training. So the most simple would be something, if we talk about like a bike fit, well, if you have a position that is not optimized for you to ride, and you're trying to be super aero to go super fast, but you can only hold it for 2 seconds, and then you need to stand up because it's killing your back, well, all the gains that you could have achieved just by being super aerodynamic at first, they're already lost. And because it's a position you cannot sustain, it's going to be playing against your performance. So it's trying to address various elements that can potentially help your training. As an athlete or as a coach, I work with other coaches to supplement some help for their athletes, because the whole point is just to try to get you guys become better. So in terms of the major services I'm trying to approach that is with metabolic testing, bike fitting, aerodynamic testing, which is a newer thing we started offering, and then gait analysis. With the metabolic testing, basically it's just a diagnosis tool to try to figure out what's your physiological profile. By that, what I mean is we all have strengths and weaknesses. We all may be very good in swimming, but we are not necessarily as strong on running, or maybe we can run very fast for like a 5K, but anytime we need to go longer, we start struggling a little bit. We might be able to ride very fast on like a Tuesday with a group, but then when you go to a race, you're struggling a little bit to sustain that pace, because maybe you don't train enough in your aero position or whatever it is. So with this tool, we're trying to identify what are the areas of opportunity that you could target in your training that is going to get you more bang for your buck. It's going to return more fitness in a shorter period of time. All of you guys do this to some degree, whether you're self-coach or you have a coach. They'll have you do an FTP test, or they might have you do a CSS test on the pool. Some of these tools, what are trying to figure it out, if there's a way for you to identify these strengths and weaknesses. The problem with that is that it's a very superficial view. You're just trying to anchor everything to power or to pace, which is very useful to a degree. But because it's only a mechanical output that we're analyzing, at some point the only obvious answer is like, well, if my power is low in this particular section, well, I always need to have a higher power. So we're always chasing a higher FTP, a higher CSS, or whatever it is. And that's not necessarily wrong, but it's an incomplete view, because if you're doing something like long course, triathlon, if you're doing 70.3s or Ironman, doesn't matter if you have a super shiny FTP or super fast CSS. If your CSS is 130s, but you can only hold it for 500 yards, then who cares when the race is going to be 2,100 yards, right? So you need to figure out what elements are lacking in your training, and this is a way to do it. So basically, with these, we're trying to map those areas, and basically, if you've never done a metabolic test, I'm using a lot of different tools to try to pinpoint different systems in your body. You have the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, the metabolic system. All of those are helping you go at a given power, at a given speed, or whatever it is. If you only do a power test, we're just making that superficial view. With this one, we're kind of like looking under the hood, to use a car engine analogy. So during the test, what we do is we use mass to measure your oxygen consumption, either with this one or more specialized equipment. We are being a little bit evil, doing a quick poke on your finger, taking a sample of your blood so we can analyze it to see how much lactate you're accumulating on your blood. We have tools to measure how much oxygen you're using at a given point on a muscle. And then before the test, we can do a functional pulmonary test to see how strong your lungs are. So all these different tools, what enables us is at the end of the test, we can then say, well, for Pam or for Steve, your strength seems to be that you can produce a lot of energy for about 20, 30 minutes, which might be why you're doing well at like in the sprint distance. But anytime you need to go a little bit longer, your body starts struggling because your efficiency is not very good. What does that mean? Well, you start using a lot of oxygen to drive a little quicker, and your body cannot deliver either that quick enough, or your muscles cannot take advantage of that, and therefore you're always kind of like struggling a little. Or if you're doing an Ironman, you might have a super strong FTP for your age and for your gender, but once you start going long, you can never sustain the power that is predicted by your FTP or whatever it is. That could be as simple as your body cannot simply supply the energy needed, either because you're not consuming enough fuel, or because of the muscle level, your bodies are burning carbohydrates very fast. If you think of that car analogy, think of your car having two tanks for fuel. One is carbohydrates and one is fat. The carbohydrate tank is very small. The fat tank is very big. And the problem is that if your body could pick and choose which one to use, that would be great. The problem is your body uses, when you're working very easy, it's like, oh, we're not being taxed. We can start using a little bit of that fat because we have a lot, but it takes a lot of steps to convert it into energy. But then you start going a little bit quicker and a little bit quicker, and your body starts saying, like, oh, we need to meet the energy demand, or otherwise we need to slow down. And for that, we need to start relying on carbohydrates. That is a very small tank, but we can convert them into energy very quickly. So that disparity causes you to have trouble when you're going long, because your tank for carbohydrates is very small, and you're using it quicker because you're not trained to use more fat. And at some point, what happens a lot in Ironman? I was having an awesome bike, and then towards the end, I start feeling a little tired. And then go to that run and whoa, like a piano. So, with this, we can identify some of those things. And as a quick example, where is it? There it is. With the report, it would look something like this. We can say, well, for this particular athlete, this is for me. Respiratory-wise, in terms of my lung capacity, I have a little bit of work to do, because once I start working at a given effort, I start hyperventilating a little bit. And that might be a little bit of an issue if I'm trying to go fast for like a 70.3 on an Olympic distance. Cardiovascular, I not necessarily have a big issue because the heart can supply blood to the working muscles at a good rate. Is not a limitation. Metabolically, my muscles is where I have the most trouble. It's not that I'm weak per se, but the muscles, they cannot fully either use fat for fuel or carbohydrates for fuel as efficient as possible. So at some point, the body starts getting tired, and then everything just starts causing a lot of troubles. It becomes like a scale of issues. And then efficiency or economy, I have to do some work because I'm not as economical at using fuel for energy. So I would need to consume a lot of fuel just to go at the speed that I would like to go. And because it's not physically possible to keep eating carbs until it's coming out of your ears, at some point it's going to become a problem. So with the report, we can pinpoint some of things like that. We'll have a lot of graphs, but some important graphs would be something like, well, at what point you're burning more fat versus carbohydrates? When is that crossover point is going to happen? And if you're trying to go fast for like a 70.3, well, is trying to ride at the power you want to go is realistic or not? Or you're trying to go fast for like a Olympic distance, well, if you have the aerobic capacity to really fuel 2 hours plus of the effort that you're going to try to do. So we can identify that. We can identify precisely your fueling needs because during the test we also put patches to capture your sweat, and then I measure the sodium, and we can tell how much sweat you're losing, how much sodium you're losing, how much carbs you need to take, and with all of that, how much weight you lose during the test. So we know, for my case, if I want to go anywhere between a 70.3 to an Ironman, which fueling becomes a lot more important at a shorter distance, if I'm consuming around this number of fluids, sodium or carbohydrates, I'm going to be around the ballpark that I need. And I can always train a little bit more, a little bit less, and figure out where my balance is. The final thing that I think is very important for your training is the training zones that are very specific to you. When we do an FTP test, what do? Well, my zone 1 is going to be like 65 to 70% of that. My zone 2 is going to be like 75 to 80%, and so forth. Well, for some people that might work very well, and for some people might not. To begin with, FTP, the actual definition of functional threshold power is you need to ride an hour as hard as you can or 40 kilometers. Okay? Who does that? No one. Everybody does a 20-minute test. Sometimes they might do a 5-minute and a 20-minute test, but most people just do a 20-minute test as hard as you can on Swift, take 95% of that, and that's your FTP. For most people, that's an overestimate. So now you're starting with a number that is a little bit unrealistic. And then from there, you start taking percentages, and now the numbers are going to be a little bit high. So if you're training at your zone 1 or zone 2, which might help you develop your fat utilization, well, in theory, you're doing the right thing, but because you're starting with wrong zones, now you might be training a little bit harder than you need, and unfortunately, you're not going to get the results that you were expecting. So with these, as you're doing the test, we can pinpoint exactly at what points your body went from, I can work this at this intensity for a while, to, okay, now I'm beginning to work a little bit hard and maybe I can sustain this effort for 2 to 3 hours, to the point that you're really getting to that, it's called second threshold. This is what we're trying to estimate with FTP. We actually know what you could do for around an hour, and once you go above that, all right, now you're really on the clock. You may be able to do that for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, depending how hard you're going, okay? So you get some of that information, and you basically we're taking a lot of the guessing out of the equation. We can tell you how many calories you're burning at each intensity, how much fuel you might need, or if you're gonna do different distances, what's realistic and what's not realistic. So I have people come here, it's like, well, I'm gonna want to qualify for Kona, and I need to do this time for Ironman Texas on the bike. I need to sustain 220 watts on the bike. I'm like, well, your LT1 FTP, it's about 215 watts. So that's what you could sustain for an hour, and you can hold that for 5 hours. So it's not realistic. It's like, well, but I did my FTP on Swift, and he told me that I could. I'm like, okay, and how the other races have gone? Well, I crash and burn. Well, there might be a reason for that. So the whole point is try to get the guessing out of the equation and help you on that regard. But it's going to come down, obviously, to you getting that information first. Any questions in terms of the testing? Bike fitting, very quickly, because you'll know, I think I fitted the majority of you guys here. But with bike fitting, it's not just about finding a position that is going to be sustainable, but you can find different layers in terms of your fitting, in terms of what position is sustainable, what position is more powerful, because if you have a position that is very aggressive, you're going to close your hips so much that producing that power, it might come at a higher cost. So on one hand, it feels harder to put that power. Some people might not be able to adapt to that position, so they cannot put the power. And two, now they're burning more calories. So when we talk about the testing, if you're using that energy very fast, at some point, it's gonna come back and bite you. So if you are able to produce power in a better position, you can improve your efficiency. Then you're gonna become your training is gonna be better suited. You're having a tool to better supplement that training. So then when you go to races, you can actually focus on performing. Okay. So with the testing, we have the normal services. One that I started offering probably over the past 3 months, it's the metabolic BiFit, in which now we're also seeing, well, if your position is here, or your position is here, or your position is here, which one is not only going to give you better power and comfort, but also what's going to cost you less calories per minute. And that's one of the, we start incorporating, because I use my guinea pig, Yana, to start testing all these things. I'm like, what happens if we change your position, if we put you and measure your energy here, there, and whatnot? And then we figured out that the position he had last year in Kona, 2022, she did very well, but it's like, that's not the most efficient for you. And what if we tried to go to a higher position? And she looked at me like I was crazy at first, because that means, well, it might not be as aerodynamic, but it was more economical. As soon as we changed it, she's like, oh, I feel I can put power better. It was just a subjective way, but it happened right away. And then we measured it, and she was saving around 1 calorie per minute, which doesn't sound a lot, but that's 60 calories per hour, and then the equivalent of a GU is going to be around 200. So it was kind of like about a quarter to half a GU that she was saving per hour, energy-wise, that either you don't have to eat as much, or you can use that extra energy to put more power and go faster. Okay? So the other thing is now the aero testing. And I wanted to also comment on this, because we also start looking into, well, if this position is more economical and you're more comfortable and you can produce more power, is it really faster? Because what are we going to give away if you're on a faster position but not as economical? You're in a position is lower but you're more economical. So with aero testing, I talked to the Alcott Velodrome in Houston, and now we have an agreement that I can do velodrome testing there, or we can do aero testing on the road, because I have specific tools that we put a bunch of sensors along your body, so we can see your body moving as you pedal. We can put a sensor on the front of your bike. I have an image somewhere around here, that in front of your bike, that is actually measuring the wind, speed, and direction. That's a very important element to calculate coefficient of drag. There's another little gizmo right here that we put on your stem that is also going to tell us how much your head is moving, which is very important, because if we're going to get a good number for aerodynamics, if you happen to be riding like this, or if you happen to be riding like this, that couple of centimeters in change is going to affect your aerodynamics. So we can also figure out that we have actual accurate data to make good prescriptions. With these devices, plus we have markers along the road, or on the velodrome, we have an actual timing strips. We can get very precise data what's happening. And when you have that control data, then all of a sudden, when we figure out with Yana, is like, in fact, the newer position, this position, it's about 6 centimeters higher than she was in 2022. So she went from being super low, about 5-6 centimeters higher. So these, you could barely see any space before. Now she has this big spacer right here. Okay. We start doing the testing. We start figuring it out, and also it's like, this is not only more economical, but you're faster. It was a little bit, but it was faster. Okay. So what happens now if you use a different helmet? Or what happens if you use aerosocks, or you don't use aerosocks? What happens if instead of putting a big profile design aero bottle here, what if we put 2 smaller aero bottles there, and then almost close the whole gap right here? What happens if you have 2 bottles? What happens if you have a big bottle? What happens if you have a bottle under the jersey that now is becoming super popular? And by testing, you do that going laps on laps of getting the data live on the computer. It's like, that was good, that was bad, that was perfect. And then all of a sudden, we got to this position, and it's like, this is the fastest position. It might not mean anything, but the lower the aerodynamic number and drag the CDA, the better. So Yana pre-test, pre-doing all the different changes, she was around a 0.23, which for triathlon is very good. Pros are going to be in the neighborhood of like 0.2 to 0.21. If you guys follow someone like Lion Sanders in his videos on YouTube, he actually was doing recently some aero testing, and he was trying to get to 0.21, because apparently his position was not very good before. But anyway, when most age groupers that I see here are going to be on the 0.25 range, kind of like middle, and anything higher than that, you're really giving a lot of time. Anyway, so 0.23, we ended up with a 0.21 for her going into common. And obviously you're working on your fitness, you're trying to get better power, getting stronger and all of that. But this is the illustration of free speed. Well, not so free, because I'm going to charge a little, but free to some degree, to the point that you're going to go faster at the same power, right? So, and honestly, I was shocked by how well this worked, to be perfectly honest. Because we knew we were onto something, but you always go to Kona, heat, humidity, wind. They happened to have good conditions. It was not perfect, but it was a good day. And tracking the splits, I'm like, hopefully she's staying within the plan, because she's going very fast. And then when she finished and I saw the time, I'm like, okay, this is insane. And the first thing I saw her coming back, so like, were you taking it easy? Because, and she did. I know that she had a good day. But this is obviously a bit of a nap, because this is something that I think a lot of athletes can really tap and benefit from. You don't need to go to the velodrome. We can also get together. I'm going to try to offer something on like Wood Lane, in which we can do it on the road. The difference is, one is going to be a little bit more practical, economical, simple to do on the road, but you can get very good results because I have a lot of the tools to control the variables. When you go to the velodrome, you just remove a little bit of the variable that it's traffic, and because you're going on a known surface, then you're going to have a little bit better information.
An idea.
Yes. Yeah, so it's going to be in idea in terms of...
Deer. An idea.
Oh, yes.
Be a deer at Woodland.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of scary.
Deer.
Oh my
Man, speak English.
Deer. All right. So finally, we have the gait analysis. For the gait analysis, similar with the bike fit, the gait analysis I see in two ways. One is you are being struggling with some overuse injuries that maybe they're not hindering your training, but they're always bothering you to some degree. Or, worst case scenario, now you can run. And even if these guys are working their magic, because oftentimes addressing the root of the problem involves treatment, involves strengthening in terms of mobility and all of that, but also they might not have the luxury of seeing you run, that when you're running, your mechanics, you're landing, and you're doing something funny with your hip or with your knee, that's the kind of like the missing link. So if you've been struggling with that particular problem, we are able to identify, again, I put a lot of different toys on you as you're running, and another video here, and then as you're doing that, we're measuring different things in terms of your mechanics, and then try to identify what mobility or stability limitations are occurring that may be contributing to your problem. So a lot of people that they have IT band problem, a lot of the times is not just because they might be running on a given way, but because they have instability around the core. So when they run, the hip starts doing this movement. And then it puts so much tension right here that it almost kind of like that IT band snap, napping around your bone, and it starts creating pain. And treatment is going to help you continue to train, but it might not necessarily get rid of it. And the strengthening might help a lot, but now if we add an element of correction to that gait, then now all of a sudden we might be coming back to training a little bit quicker. The other element with the gait analysis, it could be that you're not injured, but you're just trying to get the most out of your performance. So for the Africans, the Kenyans are the fastest runners in the world for marathon. And a lot of the studies they've done is like, well, they have a higher oxygen consumption, or low lactate threshold. They have a lot of power. What is it? And the common denominator that keeps happening is that they don't have the biggest engine. Americans, Europeans, they have a bigger VO2 max, a bigger engine. They don't have the lower lactate levels. They have an incredible economy. Meaning, for a given pace, if they're running at the same pace as a counterpart in the United States or Europe, they might be running at the same pace, but the Kenyan is using less oxygen at the same speed, meaning they're burning less calories per minute. So, while the other two have a bigger engine, at some point, the other ones start falling behind and slowing down because they're using that energy quicker. And endurance, the name of the game is how we can budget our energy as efficient as possible. Because if you run out of energy, whether you're going sprint or Olympic, you're going Ironman or 70.3, if you run out of energy, you're slowing down. So, with the other type of analysis, the performance one, we can measure also your economy as you're running, or also, something we did with Yana, test different type of shoes. Because everybody knows super shoes are great for training or for racing. They're going to give you a benefit, but not all shoes work the same for everyone. You might be using super expensive Alpha Flies, and they might be fast for most people, but they might not be fast for you. And now they're doing a lot of studies to see who's responders and non-responders. So sometimes you see marathoners posting crazy times. Hopefully they're clean. Assuming they're clean, it's one of the theories is that because they're responding a lot more for the shoe that gives them a lot more benefit on their economy. So with Yana, we test different super shoes, and it turned out that the Nikes that she was using, they were the faster for her, compared to like Asics, Novaplast, and even we did the Ons Cloud and a couple of others, and those were the faster. But for you, it might be different. So you could come and do a performance analysis, try to figure out how it can get you faster, and says like, hey, I want to bring 3 or 4 shoes that I want to test because I've been using them. I want to see which one's faster for me. Perfect. Through the test, we do that.
I can't afford that.
You have like 1,000 shoes.
All the same brand.
But that could be another element to help. So, with all that information out of the way, do you guys have any specific questions about metabolic testing, the air testing? I think BiFit for most people already kind of like know most of that data analysis. Or any more questions for these guys in terms of the treatment, maintenance?
I guess it's more I'm so afraid of getting so much information and just not knowing what to do with it.
So that's why, for instance, with people I don't work with, I try to do 2 things. On the report, I front load the first portion of the report with what I call the summary, in which I just tell you, this is the areas you need to work on. This is
It's probably too small so you can't see it.
So this is areas you might need to work on. How? Well, for that, you need to know what are your training zones, because that's how we're gonna set up the training. And for you, the most important element is zone 1 might be of moderate importance. Zone 2, very important for you. Zone 5, maybe you need to do a little bit. Okay? After the test, we do a Zoom follow-up, or we can get together depending. But we can just do a follow-up, so I send you the report, you can just check it and say, okay, if you're coaching yourself, I would recommend you that you can spend, if your next race is in 6 months, the next couple months, put a little bit of emphasis on this zone and do a little bit of these 2 other zones. Not everything has just to be one thing. And then for the next couple months, then you can switch gears and you can put a little bit of emphasis on this and then a little bit less emphasis on that. And then on the final build-up, then put most of your emphasis on this because it's going to be the most specific for you. At the end of the report, there's a bunch of samples of workouts, how they look like for each zone, so you have an idea how to implement it. So that's something that I did with Scott.
Darling.
Yes, Darling, because I don't have time for for coaching right now. I just want someone to give me some direction. And then he tested 2 times before Ironman Texas, and he ended up doing well. He qualified for St. George, the Ironman over there. So it can be very beneficial. If you have a coach, then I try to connect, like tell your coach, and then we can do the Zoom together, and then we talk about it. Because I don't want to I don't want to kind of like guide or manage your coach, your training or anything like that. That's your coach. I just want to give you some information that you and your coach can use to make it better. So I done it with Dawn, for instance. Dawn English sent me a bunch of her athletes. So after we test, then we do the follow-up Zoom call, and then she's like, perfect, now I know we're going to spend a little bit more time working. So I try, the information at the end is there. If you're curious, you want to learn about it.
Is the Zoom a heart rate or?
It can be heart rate, power, pace, or perceived exertion. Whatever you want to use, whatever your coach uses, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's going to come down to, and if you use both, it can become a very powerful tool. Because, for instance, if you're doing a workout and your power should be X and your heart rate should be Y, under normal circumstances, those two are going to be close to one another. But yesterday, you spent a long time at the office, you didn't sleep well, you didn't eat fuel well before the session, and now you start doing the session, and your power is super low, and your heart rate is higher than normal. Well, that could give you a very powerful instant feedback to say, like, today might not be a day that I want to put my body into a lot of intensity, so actually today, maybe I'm going to hold back, or I'm going to text my coach, is like, hey, right now it's not going to happen. And I have actually information telling me that it's not going to happen. You might be able to power through and get it done, but then maybe you potentially put your body in a bit of a hole for the next day. Or you slept super well, you're in super great mood, you get to the workout, and all of a sudden your heart rate is normal, but your power is 10, 20 watts higher than normal. That's a perfect day to just go with the flow. Don't hold back, because the day your body is feeling good, and your body's not a machine. For us coaches, we like to think that we can tell you how you're going to feel on a given day. We don't. We're guessing all the time. So anybody to tell you, turn back and run, because we're trying to give you an educated guess of what we think when your body's going to feel in a given way. But nobody knows your body better than yourself. So if you can use this information to empower yourself to make better decisions, that's going to be very useful. With Yana, as a creature of habit, very dedicated triathlete, what's on the training, it gets done. No matter if one day I'm drunk and I start putting crazy training, it was like, you put it there, I need to do it. And one thing we did a couple of years ago was like, you cannot train like that all the time, because we started incorporating all these things. So it's like, what I'm going to give you is the workouts for the week or a couple of weeks, but you're going to do the hard workout on the day that you're feeling better, and the easy workout on the day that you're feeling tired. Wow, I don't do it that way. If it's on Tuesday, I need to do it on Tuesday. I took a little bit of time.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 years.
Was it not that long ago?
5.
No.
It's like 3 world championships.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was
like.
Well, that was one of the changes that took her to that. It was about 4 years ago. Because every time she was training a bunch, she would start having setbacks, no matter how well she slept and ate and all of that, because her body couldn't handle it, because she was always doing what it was exactly as planned, even though we don't know how the body's going to respond on a given day.
Well,
And once Yep.
It was also pre-testing, pre-metabolic testing. So we were using FTP zones, and yeah, if it said 90 to 95, then of course I'd have to start at 95. And then I never used to see the number to go down, right? So I would do it, but I obviously work harder than I probably should have. So then I was tired. So then the next day I couldn't do what was on the schedule, and then I would try again. And so obviously it was like a vicious cycle. Once we tested, and so he would tell me go easier. It's okay if you back off a little bit. I'm like, no, because if I back off, that means I'm going to get worse. But then when I did this test, then it would actually tell me, okay, you need to go 20 watts easier, but you're now in the right zone, and what is actually happening inside your body is helping you. And I'm like, okay, I'll go easier. it felt easier, but I would finish the session and I wouldn't be on the floor face down for the next 20 minutes, and I'd get up the next day and I could do it again. And that's how I was, that's the only way, but somebody told me to go easier was way against the what, how I think and how I'm built, but because I could see, based on this test, that easier is actually better for me, it allowed me to train smarter, more efficiently with my time, and more as a result, because I wasn't dead at the end of just about, every other session or whatever. And I think that's
So
what,
going into that corner,
that's what made the biggest difference.
your average training, before she would get to 20 hours, it was a triumph. And then all of a sudden, for 3 months pre-corona, around with this different approach, she was handling about 25 hours of training for 3 months a week. And it was just, I'm not dying all the time, I'm not hungry all the time. Well, she's always hungry. But so it just, the whole point with this is to empower you with information that either yourself or your coach can just help you just get a little bit better out of your body. Because all of us, we have families and we have jobs and we have all these different things that we need to do. And if you only can train 5 hours or 10 hours or whatever number of hours you have, you want to get the most out of it. And oftentimes, it's not your lack of dedication. You're doing the work, you're doing what you're being told, and yet you're not getting the results that you want to. And it might just be not that what we're telling you as coaches is necessarily wrong, but we might not have the whole picture. And this is the whole point. Try to get the whole picture so then you can make better informed decisions. With your training, with your racing, with all of that. Mm-hmm.
You kind of went into a little bit of the recovery aspect there, but I don't remember seeing. Or did you talk at all, or do you want to talk at all about what the heck's the metric? Yes, HRV. There we go. Yeah.
So one thing related to that and the testing we have obviously the performance one. We do all the fancy, super hard training, and then the yelling at you just to try to go as hard as you can, torture you. But we also have other element to get the most out of your body is getting the proper recovery, which is where HRV comes from. But a supportive stuff you can do for your testing is what we're actually going to do for Jeff and Val hopefully soon. It's the resting metabolic rate, which is just at rest, using the tools, how much energy your body is using at a given point. So if I find the right, there you go. So basically, just to stay alive, you're going to need a certain amount of calories during the day. And if you are working, daily activities, showering, taking care of the kids and whatever, you're burning more calories. And then if you're training on top of that, then you're then burning a little bit more calories. So a lot of people, they go into training, it's like, well, I also want to lose a little bit of weight, or maybe I can actually get a little bit stronger, or whatever it is. And they start trying to manipulate the diet, but maybe they're falling a little bit behind on their needs. So with this one, you know roughly how much you would need just to stay alive. If you're actually doing training 10 hours a week, which is, I'll ask you, it's like, well, you need to add a little bit extra. And when you have a good diet in addition to good sleep, those are the two most powerful tools for your recovery. Anything else that we try to add or sell or whatever, it's just extras that may or may not do a lot of work. Foods or supplements or whatever, the two key ingredients to recover faster is going to be sleep and diet. With HRV, which is heart rate variability, it's a simple approach in which you measure your resting heart rate every morning, and there's a tool. You can have an app that is $10 or something like that, in which you can get the readings of that resting heart rate and the space of every time your heart is beeping, what is the interval between those. And that gives you a number. When your body and the central nervous system is very stressed, either because you're overtraining or with life, you got to fight with the family or work is being very stressful, that is something that we're not capturing or is not as obvious to us. Because if you go and run an hour as hard as you can, you know you're tired because you just run an hour as hard as you can. But if you spend 10 hours in the office, you might feel a little bit tired, but it's not as obvious to you that that stress is really impacting your life in general. So with HRV, by measuring this each morning, it will give you a number that is either higher or lower in general, which is very particular for the person. And this basically telling you how stressed is the nervous system. And when you're doing the right training, but yet you're seeing that constant HRV and resting heart rate, one going up and the other one going down, training-wise you might be doing the right thing, but life-wise something is off. Maybe you're not sleeping, maybe you're not eating enough, maybe you're working so hard that your cortisol levels are so high that you're stressed all the time. So with HRV, incorporating that into your training with that simple tool, every morning you just kind of like take a quick check. Okay, how am I feeling today? And when we start changing the training for Yana, it's like you'll do the hard training when you're feeling good, the easy training when you're feeling tired. Each morning she will check her HRV, and he's like, oh, today's a little bit off, that what it should be normal. That doesn't mean that you already changed your day right away, but it's already telling you, well, something might be a little bit off. So if you go into your session, you start doing your bike workout, and the legs are just nowhere to be found, well, that reinforces that something was off to begin with. So maybe instead of trying to dig yourself into a hole and pushing through the session, maybe that's a good day to back off a little. So that's another very simple tool, highly recommended whether you're a self-coach or you have a coach. Talk to them to see if they can incorporate HRV, because literally the app is like $10, $12.
It's built into a lot of the new watches now, too.
I mean, a lot of the new watches. One thing to keep in mind is that not all HRV is created equal, in the sense of each device is going to have an algorithm. And basically, with the app, which I think is worth $12, I'm not associated with them, is that it will just take a snap picture of the latest portion as soon as you wake up. And research suggests that that's the better time to tell you how stressed is your body, because you went through the whole night of sleeping. Some devices, I have the Aura, it takes that, but it's taking the whole night, so it might be a little biased. Whoop do the same, Garmin does the same. So I would still heavily recommend a strap in the morning with your app and check it. If you're using some of those tools, as long as you realize that there's going to be a little bit noise on the data, it can be useful.
When you say morning, are you talking about do nothing, get up and test it, or?
It depends on your routine. Mine, I wake up, go take a pee, go back to bed, sit for a few minutes, and then I take it.
Okay.
Yeah, try to do that every morning.
Don't eat, don't.
Yeah, nothing.
So
Just pretty much first thing.
I just check my HRV using my watch in the Garmin app, and I've been doing very little. I've been no stress. I don't really have stress in my life, fortunately, and it's like unbalanced. So when I was training for Finland and doing all that, it looked good. It was balanced. Even traveling abroad and all that, everything looked good. And now it's just like orange, unbalanced. I have no clue why.
So what I like with something different like the app versus what Garmin does is Garmin gives you a number, but it doesn't explain you the trend, why you're on a given point. So our bodies are not machines. So for instance, through the winter, as the days are getting darker sooner, it's very common that a lot of people through the winter, our HRV drops a little bit, and then resting heart rate goes a little bit up. So it's like a seasonal type of thing. But at the same time, what it's trying to do is to say, well, you take data for like the next 3 weeks. And it's going to say, for Pam, for you right now, this is your normal range. You're high and you're low. So as long as you're somewhere in between here, regardless of the number, it should be around where you need to be. So the app is not trying to tell you you're good or you're bad. It's just telling you you're here. The apps or the algorithms or Aura, Whoop, Garmin, what they're trying to do is gamify a lot of this. So they're trying to tell you, is this good or that's bad? And in reality, that might not necessarily be as a straight line. So if right now it's a little bit on the lower side, it might be as simple as you're not training as much and your body gets better when you train.
Yeah.
Or it might be that the season right now, it's very natural that HRV is going to go a little bit low. Or it might actually, to me, sometimes tell me, it's like, oh, I'm not feeling good. I'm sorry, I start seeing my numbers being off. I'm like, why the hell is that? and like 3-4 days later, I'm sick. So it can also kind of like help you learn how your body behaves at different points of the year.
Do you see a risk that at some stage it's too much?
It can be.
It's like your first question was about taking too much in.
Mhm.
If you start reading things that say you're stressed, a lot of people start getting stressed.
Yeah.
Stressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this stuff, like I've been doing this for a long time. Technology's changed a lot in a decade.
Uh-huh.
This seems just like too much.
So Aura just introduced stress marker or whatever.
Garmin's got it
The
too.
body
Yeah.
battery.
Yeah.
So
stress
it tells you
level.
through the day, oh, you were super stressed at this time. I'm like, I was taking a nap. Like, how much stress at that
Bad
time?
trend.
So the algorithms that they're trying to use for a lot of that, they're not backed for science right now. They're not precise, and they're just guessing.
Right.
So even though I use the Aura, the only thing that I have used it, I ignore every of the markers that they give you. I ignore every single one. The only ones that I try to use is what time I went to bed, what time I wake up, because I'm trying to get better sleep. That's about it. With the HRV, the app that I like to recommend, it just does that. It just tells you, this is your HRV today, and for the past month, it's been that. And it's just telling you you're going a little bit high, you're going a little bit low, but it's not giving you a score that you're doing a great job or whatever. Just saying it's like, right now this is where you are, and it's just about trying to look behind at the trend and learning when your body's gonna be better. Because at first, on the winter, I was stressing that my HRV was too low, and then I learned that every winter my HRV goes lower. And it's like, oh, okay.
And just keep them not all straps will do HRV. So you might have one and go get the app, and it may tell you.
You don't need a strap to put this up.
Oh, yeah, you
just
can also
put
use your phone.
finger on your,
Oh.
on your phone.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So
okay.
I
Is
wake,
it
I
through
wake
there?
up in the morning, they say to not do it with a full bladder, so I go to the
Yeah.
bathroom, come back to bed, lay down, 1 minute, with
Oh.
my finger on the...
Okay. But yeah, just FYI, there are some straps that do
And
not
that's
have the capability of
$10
measuring
a month?
HRV.
a year.
No, a year.
Oh,
Yeah. It's 10 to 12 bucks, something like
Oh,
that.
okay.
One-time purchase on the.
Two goo gels.
Yeah. One Martin gel.
Yeah, I was about to say one Martin gel.
Unless you're Black
You
Friday.
know what it is.
Unless you're using the feed, one of our sponsors. Thank you. There's my call out.
I just ordered a bunch.
Yeah, we did the 3-pack.
Any other questions?
Going back to your table where you're showing, work this zone, work that zone.
Yeah.
So say it says, hey, you need to work your, because you were kind of looking at it holistically. It seemed like saying, hey, you're not as good on your fat max, work that type of thing.
Yeah.
If I come into you, get the test done, and I'm saying I'm gonna do an Ironman, so I need all the zone 2 help possible, and this chart says it even has it on. No, maybe it doesn't. Yeah, zone 6, like high importance or whatever.
Well, that's for efficiency.
Even still, would you be saying, "Oh, go do a VMAX workout," because it says
So
very important.
the first thing I do is I ask them, okay,
So
what
I
are you
guess
training
before
for?
before you answer that,
Yeah.
would you say, okay, here's your goal that you told me?
Uh-huh.
Would you say, even though you need help in this area or that area, would you say target these specific zones specifically before?
It's about context. So I ask you, what are you racing? So if you come to me and you want to test, and you are 3 months out of Ironman, Texas, and I say, these are areas that it could help you, but they're not important right now because you're 3 months from Texas. So right now you need to focus on what's going to give you the most bang for your buck for Texas. So while something around here might be important, right now it's not the right time. If after Texas you want to use the results to continue to work on your profile to get us stronger in different areas, that would be a good time to start incorporating. If you come and say, well, I'm going to do an Ironman not until October of next year, well, you have a lot of time, then why don't you do a block of 2 or 3 months in which you can place an emphasis on not the specific training that you need for Ironman, but it's going to help you become a better athlete. And once you get closer to that big race, then you can do the specific training. So, and I will give you those recommendations. It's like, right now it's not as specific, do a little bit of work here, with most of that work there, and then as you get closer to Ironman, try to ignore a little bit of that, and then do a little bit more work here and work here. So
And how frequently do these numbers change where you want to retest?
it depends on how well you're trained. With the guinea pig, we test about every 3 months. I have people that they do it twice a year, and some people do it once a year. So it comes down to, we see, for instance, with Yana, every 3 months, her power numbers and heart rate might not change dramatically, but all of a sudden her fat utilization is like way higher than it was 3 months before. And she might start beating herself mentally because, oh, my numbers are not changing dramatically, but now you have a way to show her that, but you made a big physiological change in your body, so now you set up the foundation, then now we can actually get those numbers a little bit higher. But, I mean, obviously it comes down to what you deem might be important, budget and all of that. I would say for most athletes, if you were to do it twice a year, it will give you a good 2 points. One before the season start to get your training going into the first race of the season, April, May, June, and then test somewhere in the summer, so then you can go into the second part of the season, depending how late you're going to be racing.
So, and I'm assuming we talk a lot about long course triathlon, but you can do this just for running for a marathon?
Mm-hmm.
Is 3 months enough time? If I did it, if I were able to do it next week, is that enough time? I mean, I'm just really starting my marathon training.
If you're just starting,
I'm
it
just
could be a good time because you can use information for your training, but also you can start using the information for your fueling that you're going to start incorporating into your training. So even if you're not running 20 miles right now for your longest run, well, as you start building to that 20, 22 mile or whatever you get to run, you can start already saying that, well, my need's about 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour with a quarter of a bottle of water or whatever it is. Well, whether I'm running 8 miles or 10 miles or whatever, anything that is longer than an hour and a half, and we're already going to start practicing that because you're training your stomach to make sure that you're getting the proper product and the proper amount, right? So
if you have a time goal, it will also tell you how far, where are you with the weight sessions.
yeah, if you say, well, I want to run a Boston qualified, and we do the test, like, well, right now you're not there yet. Could you get there in 3 months? Well, this is some of the training that potentially can get you there. It's not obviously a guarantee because everybody responds different to the training, but you can at least have a more precise map. So I call this, it's like, some people like to have a GPS to know exactly how to get to the quickest point, and this gives you a very precise route, but along the way you need to make a couple of adjustments because, again, we're not machines and your body may adapt a little bit different.
So in other words, book it.
I'm running out of time.
Book it, yeah.
You can just walk right in there.
Right. And the team does get a discount, so.
Right now is when I start getting a lot more requests for the testing because
Off season.
everybody's going to start training for the Woodlands Marathon, Texas, Galveston, and then kind of like just get the season going. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Eat the cookies.
Yeah, eat the cookies. Here we have a microphone and I'll close things out.
So it's so funny.
So, thanks everyone for coming. Definitely want to thank our gracious hosts here at Mobility, Clayton and Robbie, and of course our expert here, Jorge. I do want to call out one thing. I know we are a coaching and agnostic team, and I get a lot of feedback sometimes with, hey, you're partnering with so and so and they're a coach, but I would challenge you to walk into this secret laboratory and find anything coaching related in there. So Jorge does a really good job of separating FreeSpeedLab and the coaching arm that he manages. So, and as he said, he works with coaches and their athletes to provide these services as well. But just wanted to call that out because I have had comments in various aspects of working with Jorge in the past. So again, thank you Jorge and FreeSpeedLab and Robbie and Clayton, Mobility Chiro. We've got a couple of our other sponsors here. We've got Wayne from our WP Realty. If you're buying a house, that's the man. Cheryl's got Bow Creative and Crashera Digital. And so if you're needing websites or real estate marketing, y'all two need to get together. Definitely. So beyond that, thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time.